Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. So we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Ernest Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content and hit that notification bell so you never miss our video. Tom Izzo finally did it. He utilized the transfer portal for the first time in 3 seasons. He got Tyson Walker in 2021 through the portal from Northeastern, and he was very solid for the Spartans for the past few years. But now he's out of the program, and Michigan State, they need an influx of talent through the portal, or they could have a rough season next year. But Michigan State and Tom Izzo, they don't want to have a rough season, so they're bringing in Frankie Fidler, the former Omaha forward. He's coming into the program. He averaged 20 points per game this past season. This is a massive addition for the Spartans. I'm going to go over whether Frankie Fidler can be the player that Michigan State needs him to be next season, and whether the Spartans could have a solid team next season to keep Tom Izzo's streak of over 25 consecutive NCAA tournament appearances alive. Now, Michigan State, it's been well documented that the last few seasons, they haven't been as good as they normally have been under Tom Izzo. And it's been because of the transfer portal. Tom Izzo just doesn't utilize the portal like a lot of other programs do. It's kind of like Dabo Swinney in college football, how the Clemson Tigers, they're not utilizing the transfer portal. And that's why Clemson's fallen from being an elite program in college football to now they're barely a top 25 team. And it kind of seems like Michigan State has followed a similar trajectory. And I get why coaches like Dabo Swinney and Tom Izzo do not want to use the portal, because they like building a culture. They like bringing in guys that stay with the program for 3 or 4 years, and they were recruited for 2 or 3 years out of high school, so the coach knows what type of player that they are, what type of person that they are, and that's the way that some of those coaches like to be. But that's just not the day and age we live in anymore. Even though that is the more ideal way to recruit in college basketball, the transfer portal has just basically destroyed that idea. You have to be able to bring in players every offseason, because Michigan State, they're losing some players from this past season's team. Like I said, Tyson Walker, he's out of eligibility. The last transfer that Tom Izzo brought in, and he was really good for the Spartans for the past few seasons, definitely helped out Michigan State still be a tournament team, because without Tyson Walker, they definitely would not have been a tournament team. Joey Hauser, he also brought him in through the portal as well, but he's been gone for over a year now. He was a good player for Michigan State, but Malik Hall, he's gone from this past season's team. He's out of eligibility. And A.J. Hoggard, who's been a program stalwart for the past couple seasons, he's transferring. So unfortunately, even though Tom Izzo has always had a good culture at Michigan State, he was not able to keep A.J. Hoggard. He is leaving the Spartans. Whether he decides to go off to the NBA or come back to college, he's just going to transfer to another program. And Joe Tipton, he tweeted out the breaking news that Omaha transfer forward Frankie Fidler is committed to Michigan State. The 6'7" junior averaged 20 points per game this past season. And this is a massive addition for Michigan State, because for one, it shows that Tom Izzo knows that he has to use the portal, and that if he wants to have a good team next season, he just can't rely on his returning players and the guys that he's bringing in through the high school recruiting ranks, because it's very tough for freshmen to be able to adjust to the college game these days when you have so many 4- and 5th-year seniors still playing in college basketball. It just makes it tougher on those young guys to be able to come in and make an impact right away. That's why a guy like Xavier Booker, who is a 5-star recruit coming in this past year for Michigan State, he barely played and did not make much of an impact until later on in the season. And Xavier Booker should be back for Michigan State next season, which will help out the Spartans down low, and he should improve next season if he stays at Michigan State. But still, you just can't rely on high school recruiting. And Frankie Fidler, he is an experienced player. He is a junior that's going to be a senior next season in college basketball, and every single year in Omaha, he improved. He averaged 12 points per game as a freshman, 14 points per game as a sophomore, and over 20 points per game as a junior. He averaged 6 rebounds per game, 3 assists, so he's actually a solid passer. He doesn't really block that many shots, but he does play more out on the wing, and he's a pretty good stealer as well. And he shot 85% at the free throw line this past season, 45% from the field, and 36% from 3. You would like him to be a bit better of a three-point shooter percentage-wise, considering the fact he was at a smaller school, but he is a high-volume shooter, and his shot at the free throw line shows that he is a good shooter. Now, I know that he's not going to be averaging 20 points per game next season for Michigan State, but he is exactly what the doctor ordered for the Spartans, because they really lack that Joey Hauser type of player this past season, a taller guy that can shoot the three and be able to do a little bit of driving off the dribble. And I think Frankie Fidler fills that role perfectly, because he can drive in the lane, he can get to the line, he's a really good shooter. And Malik Hall, he always kind of struggled to shoot the basketball at a consistent rate at that forward position for Michigan State. He was a good player, but I think Frankie Fidler, even though he might not be as good of a defender as Malik Hall was this past season with his big body, I think Frankie Fidler is going to be an upgrade at the forward position for Michigan State next year because they needed a three-point shooter to be able to stretch the defense at a high level, considering the fact so many teams have guys that are 6'7" or 6'8" that are good shooters these days. And when you look at Michigan State's recruiting class, it's still very important to recruit high school players. And Tom Izzo usually always brings in very solid players through the high school recruiting ranks. But these guys, Jace Richardson, Jesse McCullough, and Kurt Ting, we don't know if they're going to be able to make a major impact next season for the Spartans in their freshman years. The player with the best chance to make an impact next season is going to be Jace Richardson because he is a fairly talented player. But a lot of guys that Michigan State has been bringing in lately, it really took them some time to be able to really impact games for Michigan State. Look at a guy like Jaden Akins. He's been with the Spartans for a couple years now, and he still really hasn't broken out completely yet. He's had a lot of big games, but he needs to be able to go out there and consistently perform at a high level for Michigan State. So a guy like Jaden Akins, he has to play better next season for Michigan State. Xavier Booker's got to improve for next season for the Spartans if they're going to be a good team. And Frankie Fidler, he's got to go out there and be lights out from 3 next season for the Spartans if Michigan State's going to have a solid team. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with the rest of the transfer portal offseason for Michigan State. I just know that a lot of people were concerned with the Spartans on whether they were going to be a good team next year, losing Tyson Walker, because if you took him off last year's team, there's no way Michigan State's making the NCAA tournament. He definitely did everything that he possibly could to get the Spartans to make March Madness, and he barely got them there. But Michigan State just wasn't a great team this past season, and now they've got a lot of roster questions and a lot of roster holes. And Frankie Fidler is going to help out Michigan State in a variety of ways next season. Tom Izzo, he has to embrace the transfer portal. If you are a Spartans fan, this is a good sign that he is doing it, and I don't think he needs to be done yet. He probably needs to get another guard in the backcourt and maybe another big down low. We'll have to see, because Matty Sissoko, he also is transferring out of Michigan State as well. So Michigan State's losing some guys like Matty Sissoko and AJ Hogarth to the portal. They're losing Tyson Walker and Malik Hall to graduation. So Michigan State's got some holes, and they just can't rely on that freshman class to be able to help out the Spartans be a great team next year. You got to utilize the portal, and Frankie Fidler is a nice first splash addition in the portal for Tom Izzo and Michigan State, and he cannot be done in the portal yet, or Michigan State still might not be a good enough team next season. But we'll definitely have to see in the coming days if Tom Izzo does bring in a couple more portal players that could help out Michigan State, be yet another team that ends up making the NCAA tournament at the end of the season. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below about Frankie Fidler, the former Omaha forward, transferring to the Michigan State Spartans, and whether you think that's a good sign that Tom Izzo has not completely abandoned the idea of using the transfer portal, and whether you believe that Izzo will bring in another player or two to help out the Spartans roster for next season. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I'll see you next time.